This is the One Girl Revolution podcast, a podcast that highlights the stories of world-changing women and girls across the country. We hope that these stories inspire you, but even more so, we hope that these stories help you to see your own value, your purpose, and your power to change the world through your life. Every woman and girl is a One Girl Revolution. Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate, here. This week's episode is incredibly special, and it marks a first for us. For the first time, we're featuring a man on the One Girl Revolution podcast. As you know, One Girl Revolution is all about amplifying the voices of women and girls who are changing the world through their lives. And this week's guest is a man who has dedicated his life and career to supporting, protecting, and empowering women and girls in inspiring ways. Olyn Sexton is a retired law enforcement officer. He's an instructor with SASSGO. He's an instructor with the I Will Survive weekend that you all have been hearing so much about this month. And he is an instructor with Fortis Tactical, which you heard from Tina last week. He is so incredible. He is also the founder of Snipercraft Mid-Atlantic, where he trains law enforcement officers from around the country. He's also the CEO of the Lindsey Pilkington Memorial Foundation, an organization created to honor the life and legacy of Lindsey Pilkington and to carry on her mission of love, strength, and empowerment. In this episode, Olyn shares his own life journey from his time in law enforcement to his work today training and empowering others. And he opens up about the impact that Lindsey had on his life and why her story continues to inspire and drive everything he does. As you'll hear in this episode, since I heard about Lindsey from Olyn last year at the I Will Survive weekend, I feel like she has been a beacon of light in my life. And I feel like so often I'm walking alongside her or she's walking alongside me because I know that she is a one girl revolution and her life and legacy continues to be a beacon of light in our world. This conversation is raw, honest, and deeply moving, and I'm so honored to be able to share Olyn's story and Lindsey's legacy with you. So let's get into it. Here's this week's episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast featuring Olyn Sexton. Olyn, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to be here. Very much of a privilege.
I am so excited to have you on. I don't want to freak you out, but you are the first man to ever be on the One Girl Revolution podcast. But your story is so important and the work that you're doing is so critical. And also, I want to talk to you about your friend Lindsey Pilkington, and we'll get into her story and the incredible foundation. Her story continues on through the work that you're doing and through the work of SASSGO and the I Will Survive weekend. I know that her story, it really touched my heart in a special way last year at the I Will Survive weekend. And so this is such a great opportunity to also highlight Lindsey and her story and her legacy and how everything that she stood for and her voice continues to be heard by the world. So I'm so excited to have you on for all of that. There's so much to cover. But before we get into Lindsey and the foundation and I Will Survive weekend, I would love to share a little bit about your story. So I would love to rewind and hear a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and maybe how you got into law enforcement, because I know there's a story there.
Okay, so my name is Olyn Sexton, and I so very much appreciate you having me here. I grew up in a household where my father was abusive. He was abusive to my mom and to me. She was able to get out of it through divorce, but the court system still made me keep going. And so it was a horrible situation of growing up trying to watch my mom be abused, me be abused in that, and not having a healthy way to deal. I was a problem kid. I was angry. I acted out all the time. I ran away all the time. So I was really rebellious and a problem. And my mom, trying to figure out how to get some structure and figure some of that out for me, reached out to some family that we have that was in law enforcement. And they helped me to get into what at the time was the Explorer program, which is a Boy Scout adjacent program for people who were wanting to learn about law enforcement. And so I joined that at 15, 16 years old, and then started into learning about law enforcement. And I was really excited about it. I was good at it. It was somewhere I could focus attention. It required you to behave and stay away from people who were problematic. And if you wanted to be part of this, you had to have some structure and you had to control some of those spiraled out emotions that I was having. And so it really worked out for me. I realized it was a place that I potentially could help others. I could give back. There was a servant part of me that didn't want people to go through the same thing that me or my mother went through. And so when I turned 21, I put in an application, and James Armetz, the sheriff at the time, hired me. So, and then I started on from there. So I was able to start trying to give back a little bit.
Can you talk a little bit about your career in law enforcement? Because I know that so many of the experiences that you went through in that really prepared you for what you're doing now, all the trainings that you're doing now. But also, I think your story, your own experiences probably also gave you some interesting perspective and color throughout your career.
Yeah, so I went from a patrol position, starting at the bottom. And at 21 years old, I wish that you could dump the experience and the knowledge and wisdom that you get from a career law enforcement officer into that young 21-year-old person. Being a male who dealt with an abusive, father who watched a mom who was abused, and then you're 21 years old and you're in somebody's house and you don't really conceptualize and understand, and you're like, why don't you leave? And those are, I don't understand you why can't you just pick up everything and go? And there were things there that I didn't even understand, and they weren't preparing us for as law enforcement. And this, I hear friends of ours, Tina, SASSGO, they start trying to tell cops and trying to educate them so you don't have that same 21-year-old ignorant male who's trying to help out in a home who makes those dumb kind of comments. And that's where I was. I didn't know what I didn't know, and it was an awful circumstance of trying to learn the hard way. And then as you start to learn about people and behavior and how that abuse sometimes traps people and they don't see ways out of it, and then there are children involved and who keeps the money, and you start going, oh my goodness, this is bigger than what you realized. And you start trying to go, I've got to help more. I've got to be able to give more. I've got to be able to do more. I've got to help educate my partners and other officers. And you start trying to give back to that. And as I grew up in the department, and as I grew up and I learned and went to classes and got educated, it's hard to pour all that into a young person who's just started. But we have got to do a better job of educating law enforcement, civilians, judges, jurors, of some of those things that are happening in the back end that people just take for granted, because we see that it punishes often that victim who doesn't have any other way. They can't call somebody else and go, I need help from a different agency, or I can pick between a Coke or a Pepsi. You are stuck with the law enforcement you get. And if you get the uneducated 21-year-old, sometimes that's a problem. So it's growing up throughout the department. I was able to do patrol. I did investigations. I did some personal crimes. I did a lot of property crimes. I did worked up into being a sergeant on the road, which is probably the best job ever in the sheriff's department. And it's because you've done enough things and you've been around in the department long enough that you can start teaching those guys. Hey, when you're the brand new guy who goes to that house and says, well, I just don't understand why she doesn't leave, you are finally able to go, hold on, let me talk you through this and let me help educate you, so the next call you handle that better and you're able to provide more for that victim.
Yeah, that kind of education is so important. And that I love that so much about SASSGO and Tina and
Yes.
yourself, really educating police officers and judges and all these other things, because there are situations, and even situations of abuse, where maybe somebody doesn't know that it is. I know that that's such a powerful part of the I Will Survive weekend, because
Right.
the women that are there, they start thinking, even myself included, it's like you start thinking about all the different experiences that you've had, and friendships and relationships and all that, even just family members, right? You start thinking through all of that, but it's so important for us to know, for us to be aware of those different situations and how multifaceted, or how unique each scenario is, but especially for law enforcement, because, you're showing up, you're sharing these experiences where you're showing up at a house, you get a call from a neighbor or whatever, and you show up and maybe even somebody's like, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's all good. And I even know from my own friends and family that have been in law enforcement where it's like, well, they've learned to separate someone from their abuser, because a lot of times the victim will say like, oh, everything's fine, just because they don't want more trouble, right? They don't want
Right.
more difficulty. And it is sad that law enforcement, you become a police officer and then you're not trained in that. And it is going through those different experiences and learning. But that's why it's so great, your story and the work that you're doing and the work that Tina's doing in SASSGO, to really educate people and let them know about different resources too.
Yeah, there's definitely been a push from when I started in '96, way back when. There's definitely been a push in law enforcement and education. People who are strong enough to say, "Hey, look, hold on, time out in this. Let's start realizing that there's things going on inside of a person that they can't just immediately walk out. That there are struggles internally that are occurring. That's just not the answer. Is why don't you just leave?" And so by being able to give them resources, both law enforcement and our communities, I think it helps us to be stronger. And I've seen so much work over the last 20 years to make that better. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better.
Yeah, it's the same as with like mental health resources, right? Like people are talking about that more than ever, or talking about abuse or different situations that are not healthy. I feel like there are more opportunities for people to share their stories. That's why even podcasts like this are great,
Yes.
because it opens up conversations where people might listen to it and say, oh, I know somebody who's experienced something like that, or I know someone who could benefit from that, or I know someone in law enforcement. Let me send this episode to them, because we need to have more spaces to have these types of conversations. Hey girl, are you ready to change your life? Join us for SASSGO's I Will Survive weekend, happening November 6th through 9th in Lawrence, South Carolina. Register anytime in July 2025 and use the code ONEGIRL, that's the number 1GIRL, to get $100 off this transformative weekend. I'll be there, and so will so many other of the One Girl Revolutions. So come and join the Sasterhood. And if you can't make it, please consider donating to help another woman attend. Let's lift one another up together and change the world. Visit sassgo.org to register or give today. So let's talk about Lindsey, Olyn, because I know she is a big part of your life and your story, and especially what you're doing now with the foundation. So I guess we'll start with how did you first meet Lindsey? I know you guys worked together, but
So Lindsay worked at a bank, and we had an opening for a technology unit, which I was at the time part of. I was adjacent to that job. She would have been working in an adjacent technology unit to us. And so she tried out, and I was on the board along with two of my other officers, or two other friends of mine at the department, who were on her oral board to try to figure out where she was. And as she talked to us and told us what her career was and what she was looking for, she on paper didn't have exactly what we needed for this technology job. But dadgummit, she had the spunk and the wherewithal to tell us that whatever you need from me, I'm going to go and get it. And I'm going to, whatever it is, I've got the drive, the will, and the intelligence. You just got to tell me where to go learn, and I'm going to do it. And we looked at each other and it's like, all right, let's give her a try, And so she had a determination that just said, I'm the person for this job. He might not see it on that piece of paper, but I'm going to come in here and do it. And so sure enough, she crushed it. She got into the job. We hired her on, and everything she didn't know, it was, well, where can I go get a school at? Where can I go get an education? Even if I got to do it on my own time, what can I read? How can I program? What do I got to learn? And so in addition, is her personality was such that most people, when you complain to the IT person, you think of that old curmudgeon who's going to come and make fun of you, that it wasn't plugged in or something, and you're so frustrated. Oh my goodness, I need it fixed, but it's the IT guy. It was never that way. wherever she went, she was such a ray of sunshine that you would just hope something on your computer broke so you could get Lindsey to come in and fix it for you. And so it was amazing. She was just that type of personality and was so beneficial to the sheriff's department, being able to work on in the middle of the night. If there was a deputy's computer that went bad, she didn't care. They could come by, they could get it fixed. She just was super intelligent, super personality, and was so thankful that she fought for that job in that interview and that we gave it to her.
And you guys became friends. It's like when you work alongside somebody and like, yeah, you just kind of create this connection, or this connection forms, and you and Lindsey really had that, like this friendship as well, it seems.
Yeah, so because we started off adjacent, so we almost started off like partners. And so I was the certified law enforcement side of it, and she was the civilian side. And so our team and her team worked side by side trying to fix deputies' problems. So it made it, the department was great, and they realized is you needed that two facet. So you need to know how to handle the evidence and then what to do with it in the computer on the back end. And so how does the evidence need to be applied into the system? And so it took the two people, her, the smart person who understands the computer, and me, the cop person who understands what's got to happen for a court process, for us to work hand in hand to structure the system. And that did everything. And so we worked, if a deputy had a problem with something, she might not realize, well, how important is it that you communicate with a traffic stop? And so I would go, it's really important. We need to know where they're at in the GPS and how the system interacts, so that if they get into a firefight, immediately dispatch knows how to send people to them. And so, well, let's put that on the priority list. And so together, hand in hand, her and other friends of ours in the department and me on my side, we worked side by side getting those projects done. And so we worked, like the implementation of some of our computer systems, we would work days sleeping in the hallways at the sheriff's department trying to get things done for these officers. And so we became fast friends. At that point in my career, I was doing fitness program stuff. I was on the SWAT team. I was working out regularly. And that was another piece of it, is she wanted that. She wasn't happy where she was physically and her nutrition. And so because we were doing all of these things together, our family and her family would go on trips. We would go on double dates. We would go on triple dates with friends of ours. We would paint and pour, things. And so our families all got to know each other, and we were very, very, very close with that. And so she was like, hey, look, I need some help with my fitness. What can you do with that? And so we started to do that too. And every day after work, she started off just walking. And so we would meet up right after work and we would go for a walk. And then it became a jog, and then it became a run. And then she's younger than I am, and she would be running faster than I was. My poor old body couldn't keep up with her. But no, so it was amazing. We did a lot of stuff together. So it was great.
Yeah, she seems like such a beacon of light. And even when I was looking at the website, just seeing her picture, she's such a beacon of light. And yeah, it's just an honor to even know her story and know about her, and to get to walk alongside her. Like I shared with you at the I Will Survive weekend, I felt like all of us were training alongside her, because you had shared
Yep.
that story about how you were training with her. And yeah. So Olyn, like, you form this connection with your family and her family, and at some point she ended up confiding in you that things were not great at home, or that her husband was abusive.
So I didn't realize it in the beginning that she wanted to get healthy, because she didn't never, and I never thought to dig. There's things like that I regret, and I feel like if I could have go back and asked some of these things, we could have catch maybe potentially some of this stuff that were triggers. But she never said the reason that she wanted to be healthy, and it was because her husband was making fun of her. He was, emotionally and verbally abusive about her weight and her appearance. And so she decided she was going to fix it and hoped that would fix it home. And I didn't know that at the time. And so as she got healthier and she started worrying about her food and worrying about her body and her mind and things, and we're talking about all of that, making sure that, you're getting enough sleep, all the important things that you do as a personal trainer. And I wasn't a personal trainer, I was just a friend, but that you work on to get those things. And then after she started getting healthy, it didn't get better at home. And so now she's eating better, and emotionally she's better, and she's doing better mentally and physically, and it's not stopping. And so now, like on one of our runs, she says, "Hey, Olyn, Jason is nasty. He's this," and we go on double dates with them, and we're going to Chuck E. Cheese, his kid and our kids and stuff, and I didn't see it. And she's saying, "Hey, look, it's bad at home. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, you got to get out of this. How can we start helping? What can we do? What can we make to make this change?" And so I didn't know it in the beginning. And then after she got healthy, I started talking to her, and she started doing jujitsu, and she thought that jujitsu would help, and they started doing it together, like as a couples therapy struggle thing or whatever. Well, the problem is she's really good. And whatever she puts her mind to, she's going to be the best at. And she got better than him. And that became another jealous thing of his, is that not only is she healthier now, and now she's doing better in jujitsu. And so she kept telling me these little things, and you're like, "Hey, you're at a point in your life where we can get you out of this. Your mom, there's other people you can go stay with." And finally, she was like, "Enough's enough, and I'm going to start making this divorce proceeding and start working through that." And so that's where she ended up with this. She got strong enough and realized, I don't have to be abused, whether it's physical or emotional. And that's what the piece she was doing. She said he never hit her. She told me he never did that kind of stuff. But the verbal and emotional part of it, she had just maxed out. And she couldn't figure out, nothing she could do was assuaging that at home and making that any better. So that's when she started moving through a procedure to get away from him.
Yeah, it takes so much courage for someone in her situation just to take that first step, right? And I'm sure it was really scary for her to find that courage. And it can be difficult. I'm sure even like you in that situation as her friend, you want to be like, "Lindsey, get out of there. Like, what are you doing?" And
Right.
a lot of times most of the time, people have to do it on their own timeline. And so
Yep.
it took her that longer time frame to get out.
Yeah. So, and then she was the breadwinner. She was the most educated of the group. She was the hardest working of them. And so whenever it came to leaving, she wanted all of her things, and some of that was another thing is that I'm having a discussion on one of our runs where I'm like, that those things don't matter. The things in the house don't matter. You've got to leave. And they were important to her, and she scrimped and saved and worked her butt off for all the things. And sometimes, like you just said, it's hard because she those things were important. She worked from nothing, had things, and didn't want to lose those things. And so sometimes that was a piece of the struggle too, was how do you get out but still retain that strength that you built. So
Yeah, and it's so important too, sharing her part of the story where abuse looks a lot of different things, right? It's not necessarily hitting somebody, but it can be
right,
that mental, emotional abuse. And sometimes that's worse, right? Because
right,
I'm sure that it was like chipping away at her confidence. And then, you're working alongside her and you guys are working out and she's feeling better and more confident. And that was probably a big part of like what gave her the courage.
right. Yeah, no, you could see that she found her own power in her own place. She found it in, healthy eating. She found it in her workouts. She found it in jujitsu. She found it in her friends and family. And it was her. She made the decision and found that power and that strength. And that's what I love about it. That's why I love telling her story and stuff, is because you could see it. And there were people around us that watched that strength come out in her and were inspired by that, after the fact, going, "Hey, look, I find myself in a bad emotional verbal situation, and I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to take Lindsey's strength with me, and I'm going to move on."
Yeah. So she had the courage to file for divorce, start down that path. And then at some point, she was ambushed. Can you share that story?
Yep. She was 1 month out. She had her personal trainer she had picked out, at a jujitsu place. Not, I say jujitsu, I'm using the wrong word. It's judo. I apologize. I think I've said jujitsu several times.
That's okay.
Judo. yeah, I apologize. Judeau. So she found a place in Judeau in Lexington, South Carolina, and that personal trainer was from the United Kingdom. And so he was like, look, let's go overseas. I'll take you back home. I'm going to show you, all this stuff. There, she's a month out. She didn't want to do any of that kind of stuff until she was all done. And so everything's finished. She's happy with her life. She's going to sell their marital home. She's, all the things are turning up aces for her. And what's happened is that he realizes he can't have any power in it. And he's been calling friends. He's been trying to get people to try to get this thing sorted out. And, let's try to do. He showed up at the department a couple times, and it was, hey, look, she's just not interested. You're just going to have to move on. And it got to the point where he saw his power over her was about to be done. So in the middle of the night, he drove from his place, which was about 2 hours away, hour and a half away, and went to their marital home, and then got inside of the house and waited. And so that day she got off of work, she went and worked out, and she stopped by a little grocery store, picked up some groceries, and then came into her house thinking everything was fine like it always is. And he was waiting in a corner and ambushed her. And then he is a much larger, stronger person. But even all of that, she used the skills and knowledge she had to fight back, which we are very appreciative of because it helped with evidence. And so he ended up choking her and then cut her throat and put her in a bathtub. He stripped her naked and put the water on her and then washed all the clothes and then left and went back home. And so she didn't come back to work the next day. And so that was very odd. She's super punctual, always in. And so I had surgery and was not at work. And so they called me and said, hey, have you heard from Lindsey? Because we're usually every day, every other day, there's some kind of text conversation, there's phone calls, what's going on, how are you? And I noticed that I hadn't heard from her. And so I start texting and I start calling and I'm not getting her. And then so we had a mutual friend at the department and we said, hey, look, it's another person we've been out on double dates with and triple dates and stuff. And so we said, hey, look, can you go by Lindsey's house and check on, see what's going on? And he got over there and her car was in the yard and he found the back door was broken. So he called up for another person. They go inside and he finds Lindsey. And then we call in another agency to come and investigate. And I say that the department does, because we want to make sure that there's no impropriety that looks like, she's one of our police, not a police officer, she's one of our employees. And we wanted somebody else on the outside to take over that. And so that's where we found out. And so then they end up calling and I was actually off. And so I drove up to the department and then we just all kind of huddled up together trying to figure it out.
How long did it take you guys to figure it out? Because I know that some of the things that you mentioned, like him putting her in the bathtub and dumping water on her and washing her clothes, like it was all part of a cover up. He's trying to throw you off, but thankfully she fought back. And so you were able to piece things together to figure out what happened.
So, and the state law enforcement did all of that investigation. They were amazing at it. And so because I didn't want him or his people to be able to say that I was involved or I was swaying anything, everything that I learned all came through Debbie, Lindsey's mom. And so Debbie and I, we were all very close together. And in that is that if she got a piece of something, she was calling me to say, hey, this is what we got. But we all knew he did it. There was the pattern of, at that point, everyone kind of understood, where they were emotionally and physically in their relationships and stuff, and that she was not in a good space with him and that he was trying to get back into this. And there's just nobody else would have had that kind of hate in their heart to hurt somebody the way that he did to Lindsey. And then to do all the other little things like trying to throw it and make sure he cleaned up the scene and doing all the things. We all knew it, but what we couldn't do is get involved in it, and so we had to let state law enforcement work, and they did an amazing job. Of course, they went and interviewed him at inconsistencies in his stories. He had scratches on his body from where she had fought back. They were able to determine he had left his house and came back in the middle of the night when he said he was asleep. They were able to pull video camera footage, and just they did an amazing job. He used gloves, but because of the way she fought, there were pieces of the gloves that got ripped off, and so they were able to determine DNA. They were able to use the electronic devices that he turned on and off to be able to show where he was and where he wasn't. And so they put together this amazing case. And of course, he denies it all, but it's trash. But they did an amazing job. And so little bit by little bit, we would get pieces, and so there would be phone calls and all from state law enforcement to Debbie and then Debbie to us. So anytime if I was walking around the sheriff's department, somebody was talking about it, I'd turn the other way because I just did not want to have anybody go, Olyn is doing something dirty in this, because I wanted to make sure that the right person was held accountable and put in prison.
Yeah. And you want justice to be served, and you want the truth to come out, right? Even as her friend, it's like, of course, you have your theories. I love different crime shows. I think everybody that's listening to this loves crime shows. And it's like when you can figure out like, oh, the who did it kind of thing.
Right.
But as her friend, like at the end of the day, you just want the truth to be out and you want justice to be served, whatever that ends up being. So I think it's, yeah, it's good that you did step away, and it's important. There's a humility in that too, Olyn. I think there's a humility to be like, all right, I'm going to let
Rough.
these, yeah. And it's hard being a friend of somebody too. It's like, you want to take matters into your own hands, but we'll leave it there. So they end up figuring out that he did it. And where is he now? Tell me about.
So he's in prison, and Debbie gives me updates as they give her updates, because of course as the victim's mom, she is given regular stuff, and he's made some appeals that have been rejected, but he's on a regular basis, like anybody that's just ever seen a crime thing. They all try to throw all these things of it could have been somebody, it could have been Martians, Martians could have come down and done this, and I'm innocent, but he's been fighting, and so I think he's got another appeal that's coming up. But so far, everything that he's put up, he actually blamed his own attorney. Said my attorney is incompetent. But it's they did a good job, and they brought up things and they objected to pieces. Because I was in court, I got to sit with next to Debbie and the family, and I got to make the victim's impact statement. So we got to be there. And look at him and have those conversations in court and hear it. But yeah, he's still in prison, and it's where I hope he stays. So
at some point, the foundation comes to be. So Lindsey unfortunately lost her life, but her light is so bright, and there was such a need for her story to continue to be written, and her voice to be heard, and her story to impact other people, and her light to continue to shine. So at what point did the Lindsey Pilkington Foundation come to be?
So right after, so I had to talk at Lindsey's funeral, which is a weird, it's a weird agreement that Lindsey and I made. Is right before I went to go have surgery, I came in, told her I loved her, to the team and everybody, said, hey, look, in case something happens to me, I want you to know I appreciate all of you. Told her I loved her, and gave her a hug. And part of that is that she said that I said, if I die in this surgery, you're going to have to be able to come talk at my funeral. And we laughed about it, and she said that that she would only agree to come talk at my funeral if I would come and talk at her funeral. And I was like, yeah, well, you got a long way to go, and it's okay, and I'll come talk at your funeral if you die, but that's silly. And then the last thing we said to each other is we loved each other, and then we made a joke of death is only the beginning, and it's a geek thing. It's from The Mummy. There's a couple of different things that they talk about. Death's the only beginning. So if I died, it was okay that Lindsey and I would see each other somewhere down the road, kind of thing. And then, of course, all this happens. And so I'm talking at her funeral, And I'm having to give, all of these things about what we're wanting to do and what we're trying to do, and we want to do better. And I'm talking to her family, and the family, a lot of people, they don't know how to deal with that. I didn't know how to deal with the grief. I mean, but so they give money, or they'll, they give, I'm not sure what to do, so here's $20, right? And so her family had this mass of money, and we're all sitting around and we're talking about it after the funeral. And we're like, well, what do you do? And I said, well, we should start like a foundation. And I'm just talking out loud. We should start a foundation for her. And at the time, our intent is there's not a lot of intelligent women in technology. And I had the blessings of having two of the smartest women in our group, Nina, her best friend, and Lindsey, is the two smartest women that I had in technology, and they worked beside me for a while, and then they worked for me for a while. And we would go to places, and we would show up somewhere to talk about something, and immediately a person would ignore them, and they would talk to me. And I would go, hey, look, man, I'm a dumb cop. They're the smart people in the room, and if you can't talk to them, we're done. And so things I didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so I would regularly see that with Lindsey or Nina as we were working. And I'm like, you talking to the family going, look, we need to help women in technology. And so Debbie looks at me and goes, okay, well, here's all this money. Start it, make it happen, kick it off. And I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea what to do. And so I initially started trying to do scholarships for Midlands Tech for women in technology. And the problem is that's actually, there's a lot of people who are doing that. And so in the beginning, I would have people go, well, there's already functions and things, and we're not contributing, and that's not where you need to be. And as I'm talking to people, I'm like, well, how can Lindsey and I help? What can we do to help people? And they were like, well, you need to get people to hear Lindsey's story. What happened to Lindsey, the domestic violence part of it, and how she was strong and how she found her power. And I'm like, okay, so how do we do that? And Debbie has always been my unofficial board, right? So it's just me running the thing, but Debbie's always my sounding board. And so I would call Debbie up and I'd go, okay, so what do you think about this? And she's like, oh, I love it. Let's try that. And so I tried to do a couple of scholarships to some local jiu-jitsu. So we've got a local place here in Lexington, Carter's Academy, and they do great things. There's a women's program they do. And so I said, okay, well, what can I do to start paying scholarships for women to attend this? And so John Carter, the sensei there, is like, hey, look, man, I love it. Let's get involved. And he started having me show up at a couple of these things, and we talked about Lindsey. And then I would have women who at the end of it would kind of look around and go, hey, I'm having a problem, can you help? And I'm like, yes, we can help. What can we do? And so I would start paying for them to attend this women's program. And so we would have them come and go. We'd have women that would show up and they would attend, and it was amazing. And then somebody said, hey, have you heard about this Shannon Henry, Brett, Lisa, all these teams are doing this SASSGO thing. And I'm like, I don't know, but let's see. So I secretly insert my wife into a program day. And so I send her to go and be my sneaky person and tell me, are these good people and are they doing good things? And so she loved it. And so she went to their women's weekend and was like, we've got to get involved in this. And so then I started to talk to the SASSGO team, Shannon and Brett, and saying, hey, look, what can Lindsey do to help? And they were like, well, the same thing. We would love for you to be able to bring scholarships. And so the foundation at the time, we were doing well. We were bringing money in. We had family that were putting money in. And so we would pay for a scholarship or two. And so we were able to get women to this program from all over the place who were coming from Virginia or Texas or even here in South Carolina. And so Lindsey was kind of helping to pay for that. So the foundation has kind of evolved, and we're still not done. So we're going to do another evolving. We're changing some of those things that we're doing because what I have found is that as we as the foundation ask for money, I often get really powerful people and people who are smarter than I am when it comes to finance and things like that. They ask me questions of, well, what do you do at the foundation? What all are you giving here? What are you building? What are you making? And honestly, I've tried a couple times to do programs, but they don't get the same traction. And so I'm often a facilitator. And so I take the money that you, as a powerful person with some extra money, you give me, I then turn and go, Shannon, can you have this money? Or, hey, John, can you have this money? And one of those people looked at me and said, well, why don't I just give the money to them? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, right? And as long as I'm able to tell Lindsey's story and I'm able to provide space for that, and I'm able to shake those powerful people's hands and go, here's who Lindsey is, and oh, by the way, these people right here at SASSGO, they're doing what Lindsey needed. That's the kind of things that Lindsey would have benefited from, and could have found strength in as well. And so let's just get you to help them to do the program. And so that's kind of where the foundation is now, is we are going to end up bringing in and trying to bring those people as a facilitator directly to Shannon and Brett and Lisa and that whole team of SASSGO. SASSGO is gonna be our people now. And so that's where I'm gonna try to bring the foundation, is to bring as much knowledge for who Lindsey was, who she is now, because she's still alive with me now and she does a lot to help people. And so is to then show those people who SASSGO is and try to help them as much as I can.
Yeah, SASSGO is our people, and I feel like there's such a powerhouse. And I love too, Olyn, that with the foundation, a lot of times people think like, oh, I have to like do my own thing. And you could easily be like, all right, we're going to do our own I Will Survive weekend. And in reality, it's so important for us to be like, all right, who is doing what we need? And how
Yes.
can we help other women in this scenario? Like, how can we help other women create the path for them to be able to go, right?
Yep.
And it's so needed and so necessary. And I hope that every single woman and girl who's listening, and every single woman and girl in the world, has an opportunity to go to that I Will Survive weekend. And that's why we're doing this whole series, because it's so important to create these pathways for women and girls to get that training. Because like you said, with Lindsey, it is life-changing. It could be life-changing for
Right.
someone to have those experiences and do it in a safe community, right? SASSGO is Shannon always talks about like the sisterhood, and it is this sisterhood, but it's also like this community that includes you and Mike and Tina and everybody else, all the instructors who are there. And I can't wait to see where SASSGO goes from here with the banks. And I think there's so
Yes.
much that the foundation can be doing to even partner with them on that. Like, I just think it's the most beautiful connection. And I can't wait to see where the foundation goes from here. And one thing that I don't think I shared with you, but part of the One Girl Revolution podcast is not just that we have you on one time, it's that we stay in touch with you and we find other opportunities to promote the foundation and promote Lindsey's story. And so you and I will stay in touch, and we'll
Yes,
continue
ma'am.
as the foundation evolves. We'll continue to promote the great work that you're doing, because it is so critical for Lindsey's story to be out there, for other women and girls to be empowered and inspired by her story. I know that her story inspires me so much, and I know her story in her life has inspired you in so many different ways. So I can't wait to continue to promote everything that you're doing. And as this new era of the foundation kind of moves forward, and the eras to come, that we can promote everything that you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Looking for stories of women who are changing the world? The One Girl Revolution podcast is your go-to for inspiration and empowerment. Subscribe today on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and never miss an episode. Let's celebrate the power of women together. All right, let's talk about the I Will Survive weekend. So
Yep.
I loved it. It was and I ended up going because Shannon had been on the podcast, and she called me last summer, I think, and she said, we have this weekend. I feel like it would be amazing for you. You should come. And, I'm in Michigan, Olyn, I'm in Detroit. And she was like, a Detroit girl needs to come down and, learn how to shoot guns and do all this stuff. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, which I feel like everybody that goes kind of is like, all right, that sounds cool, this 3-day weekend. And probably even you as an instructor, it's like every year is a little bit different, and different people are having their own experiences and going through things. And um, you and I had this very powerful moment. And Lindsey is, like I said before, she is such a beacon of light. She'll always be so special to me for so many. Um, gosh, oh, and now I'm crying. You shared Lindsey's story last year, and it was so powerful to me, but it was so pivotal for me because I had this moment and I was standing with you and I was on the gun line and I hadn't really shot guns before. And I just had this moment where I was like, I can't do it. I can't. Like I need to step away. And I just remember you like stepped forward and you're like, all right, it's okay. Put the gun down very calmly. You were like, put the gun down. Let's step away. Go take a break. And I stepped away. And it was Lindsey Olyn that I was like, I want to come back. I want to do it. And so the next day I came back and I fought through it and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm strong. I know I can. And this is the experience that I feel like every single woman who goes to the I Will Survive weekend, they have different stories like this, but it's like you have this moment where it's like, am I strong enough to do this? And then you need that turning point moment where you're like, yes, I am. I can do this. And you ended up giving me the Lindsey Pilkington Award and I have it in my office here because it's like such a powerful moment. But that's all to say. The I Will Survive weekend was so special to me. Lindsey is so special to me. I can't wait to come this year. I'm really excited to come again and now like build on the knowledge that I already
Yeah.
have. But for you as an instructor and like your experience, you're walking along so many women and girls who are going through the similar experiences that I did. What is that experience like for you with I Will Survive weekend?
So it's both beautiful and overwhelming.
Yeah.
It is wonderful to be allowed in that space. I am wise enough at this point in my career and life to realize is a lot of the struggles and it's statistically it's not all of, but a lot of the struggles and abuse that are done unto women are done by men, and that's statistically. And I realize that there's a whole lot of different things that can occur in that, but I am law enforcement long enough, Lindsey long enough to realize is what the statistics say. And I, as a man, am being allowed into this space with people sometimes who are in vulnerable spaces themselves. And it is such a blessing to be allowed to be able to be present there and to be a potential strong person for that person too. But it's also overwhelming in that there is a lot of emotions that go on in that those 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, and so it sometimes can be overwhelming to me even trying to be in that space, knowing that some horrible person has done something to this beautiful person who's standing in front of me who is trying to rebuild and find their strength. And it's hard sometimes to go and realize, well, that's males are doing that. And so, but she is allowing me to still stand and be in space and provide a shoulder or a word of advice, and it is such a privilege. It is a blessing, but it can be a little bit overwhelming because I want to be the best man there to help and be strength and be a positive, and to realize we're not all trash buckets. And so it's just, and that's just, it is amazing that the SASSGO team trusts Mike and I and other team members that they are allowing us to be there with their SASTers. So it is amazing. I consider it a privilege every time that they allow me, but it is super overwhelming because I often realize is that I could easily be the thing that's causing them some stress, is being in that space. So it's beautiful and overwhelming.
Yeah, no, and I think that's everybody's experience that goes through it. It's like both, right? And I I've shared with everybody else who's been on the podcast during this series, like when I got to the airport, Olyn, I And I tell this to people that I'm like, you should come to this. It's amazing. It trains you how to be a warrior. And I already thought I was strong, and I found strength that I didn't even know I had, right? And talents that I didn't even know that I had throughout that weekend. And I just think it's such an important thing for women, such an important event for women and girls to go to. But I was sitting in the airport, and I'm like sitting on the floor, exhausted. And I know that the instructors, I was telling Tina this, and she was like, yeah, the instructors feel the same way. So I'm sitting on the floor, like against this wall, sitting there eating a burger and fries, like looking like I would hurt somebody if they even like said hello to me. And I joke that it's like, and it's real though. I felt like Jennifer Lopez at the end of Enough, when she like kills the
Right.
ex-husband that's like going after her, and she trains and trains and trains. That's how I felt walking out of the I Will Survive weekend. I was like, if I were in any scenario, would I do everything perfectly? Would I do everything
Right.
exactly how I was trained? No, but I have the tools. And that's even getting me thinking about Lindsey, right? She had the tools to fight. And
Right.
that's the most important thing for all women and girls, to have the tools that if you're in the situation, you're able to get yourself out, or at least fight your way and try.
Yes. Yes, you're worth fighting for, and that's a hard thing that I have learned from the I Will Survive weekend, is that there are a lot of the people there that don't see that in themselves, and so they have a hard time finding that strength that I'm worth fighting for, and that's a piece of it that I'm so thankful. By the time they leave, there is, you can see the light switch, the epiphany of, I am worth fighting for, and I am willing to stand up and say enough or no, and use my voice and use my words, and if I have to, use tools to save my own life, and I am so thankful of it.
For someone who's listening, who has been following this series, they've heard from Shannon and Brett, they've heard from a couple of the SASSGO instructors, they've heard from Tina at this point. If they're on the fence about like, should I go or why should I go? What would you say to somebody? Why should they go to the I Will Survive weekend?
To learn about yourself, and that's a piece that it's no matter what it is that we all can be a little better student and to about ourselves. We all struggle with those internal mind things. Our mind will play games with us, and what the I Will Survive weekend would be is, it helps you learn about yourself. If the things that you're doing well, let me learn how to do them better. If the things that I'm not doing well, let me learn how to fix some of them so that I can be better. And I think that's the biggest thing is that whether you're a professional or whether you're at the amateur level, you're always needing to be a good student and learn about yourself. And that's what the weekend is it's helping you to learn more about you, and be better.
It's such an incredible weekend, and we have a promo code that people can find
Ooh,
in the
nice.
show notes so they can get a discount to be able to go. We're trying to
Nice.
make it as easy for everybody to be able to go. I know also the foundation is supporting,
Yep.
women going. And so I just always say too, if there's any situation that's holding you back, if there's any scenario, whether it's financial or timing, like let us know, and anything that we can do to try to make it happen. It's so important for every single woman and girl to go. Well, let's get everybody to donate to SASSGO.
Yes,
You can
ma'am.
obviously sponsor a woman or girl to go to the I Will Survive weekend. That's another thing that we've been trying to do, is like, let's create as many opportunities for women and girls to be able to go to the I Will Survive weekend. So I will put the SASSGO
Yes,
website in
ma'am.
our show notes, and encourage everybody to donate and support there. I know they're involved in so many different things, and you're training so many different groups of people. Talk about that. Talk about all the different trainings and things that you're doing, and how can people work with you?
So if you are a woman who wants to come work with us and learn firearms, Tina Gooding, AO, and her group is where I am at, like an assistant instructor with her. And that's how one way you can get to work with me. The other way is to come see us at our weekend at SASSGO for our women's weekend, because I'm one of our instructors there who work with our firearms. Mostly what I do though is I work with law enforcement still. So I'm still for the law enforcement folks out there, is I teach mental health programs, I teach leadership, and then I teach tactics and firearms and sniper stuff for SWAT guys. But the biggest way is we work through SAS. And so if you want to come meet me and hear Lindsey's story and shake my hand, give a hug. I'm a good hugger, so I'll do that if you feel comfortable with it. But if you want to come do that, Shannon and Brett and their team, that's where I'm normally working with them to help to do as much as I can.
It's so incredible, and I can't wait to see where SASSGO goes from here and where you go from here, and I can't wait to continue to follow. I can't wait to see you in November. It's going to
Yes,
be
ma'am.
amazing. I'm so excited, and I'm excited to get a crew of the One Girl Revolutions to go as well,
Yes.
because I know it's going to be life-changing for them. Olyn, I know that Lindsey is obviously a part of the driving force. Your own experiences are the driving force behind why you're so passionate about the work that you do every single day. But if you could get to the very root of why you care so deeply about this work, what would you say that root is?
It is a servant's heart of being in a bad place and not wanting other people to be in that bad place and trying to give to any way that I can to help somebody else. And I've been in enough bad places and I've been in enough, the bottom of the hole. And I just want that if somebody finds themselves there, that they know they're not alone and that there are people who are on their side. And I think that's what we're missing often is we often feel like we're all by ourselves and there's nobody else and we're the only people who are going through it. And so my answer would be is the driving force is you're not alone and you can have bad things happen and we're going to work to make it better.
You are such an example of that, and you are working to make it better, like working to make people's lives better. And yeah, I can't wait to see where you go from here. I always ask on this podcast, who is a one girl revolution in your life? Obviously, Lindsey is a one girl revolution, and I'm so honored and excited to promote her. But who is a woman or girl that inspires you?
So I would have to say it's my wife, Bobby. She has, through all of the awful trauma and stuff that I have been through and all the things um, that I have not been present for in our family as a husband and a father, she has been strong and has excelled and helped to rebuild me and helped me to see the man that I want to be for my wife and my kids and everybody else. And so I would have to say is that my wife Bobby is that one girl revolution who has been there and is an example, and I'm very proud of.
Shout out to Bobby, a one girl revolution. Last question that I always end this podcast on, Olyn, so I'd like to ask you is, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
You're worth it. So there's a Doctor Who episode where a guy, he dismisses this woman and says that she's not important. And Doctor Who says that in 900 years, he's never met somebody that's not important. And it's just one of those things of you're important, you're worth it. And I am so super thankful to be able to say that. But you've got to say it to yourself. And if you're not saying it to yourself, listen to me say it to you and then internalize it because you're worth it.
Olyn, thank you so much for being on the One Girl Revolution podcast. Thank you for being the first man on the One Girl Revolution
Thank you.
podcast. And thank you for all the incredible work that you do. For more from One Girl Revolution, to listen to all of our podcast episodes, watch our Emmy-nominated documentary series, follow us on social media, donate to our nonprofit organization, and more, please visit onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number onegirlrevolution.com.